Okay, here we go. Magic mushroom time. I like to use the Crayola Model Magic Clay for this, and as far as my forms, anything that's a circle or a half circle is going to work out pretty well. If it's at least fairly smooth, that is much better, trust me. But yeah, I mean, there are so many things around your house you can use. An important step is putting a thin layer of oil on your form because that is going to make it a lot easier to get your mushroom cap off without breaking it later. You're going to take a small ball of your clay and you're going to roll it out. Turn it as you roll it, as you see me doing here. That's going to help you get more of a round shape and less of a oval shape. That being said, it is not crucial it turns out perfectly round. It is not going to matter in the end. I want mine about this thickness, so I'm going to go ahead now and just press it down onto my form. Be gentle, don't press too hard. It is really easy to leave a bunch of fingerprints all over this. I want kind of a scalloped edge that's turned upward on my mushroom, so I'm just going to gently pinch the edge upward as you see me doing here. And then just take my finger and gently rub anywhere I left a big fingerprint or fingernail mark in my case. If you're going to use something as a form that might roll around like this, just take a little glob of your clay, kind of smoosh it, and then just smush your guy right into it, and that'll keep it from rolling away from you. These little paint palettes I got from Dollar Tree are actually some of the better mushroom molds as far as I'm concerned. They turned out to be a good size and shape. This is the same basic method as I did with the others. Now I'm not going to put some on each one of these. You want to leave a little bit of space in between because when this clay touches itself when it's wet, it likes to stick to itself. So don't let your wet mushroom caps touch each other. You can add a little bit of color beforehand to this clay with acrylic paint. I usually don't put a whole lot of color in beforehand because the paint makes the clay more wet, which makes it take longer to cure. And also it can change the consistency and the outcome and can lead to problems like cracking and other crazy stuff. So I only add a little bit of coloration beforehand. So I get a really pastel result, as you can see right here. Another alternative is pigment powders. And again, I'm going to go light on that, but kind of for the opposite reason, because that's going to add, or not add, it's going to take away moisture, which is going to make the clay drier, which definitely is a crack hazard. You don't want it to crack. To make the stems, I'm going to get some floral wire that I got from Dollar Tree. I'm going to cut double the length of how I want my end stem to be. I will hold the loose ends of the stem together in this little pair of pliers and then stick my finger through the loop and just twist and twist and twist some more until it's as twisted as I want it. Then I'm going to get just a thin piece of clay here, and that one's a little bit too wide, so I'm going to need to cut it down a little. That's about right. So then I'm just going to lay this wire right down on top of that, and then just kind of pinch the wire closed, or not the wire, the clay closed around the wire. Then, you know, just like grade school, roll it out like a snake. Now we do want both ends of this wire exposed, so if the clay starts to cover it while you're rolling it, just cut it away. It's really easy to do. 24 hours later, your clay should be ready. Just peel it gently off of whatever form you have it on. And here's the stem with the wire sticking out like I was talking about. This is the looped end. And I'm going to take this little pair of pliers and just kind of bend that at about a 90-degree angle like you see here. Then I'm going to add a glob into the bottom side of the mushroom, right in the middle there, and you want to stick your little bent loop of wire down into that. When you're done, you're gonna have these guys. Now it's time to paint. And this first paint, the only reason I'm showing you this is so you know later what happened when you see me painting these mushrooms. This paint was kind of gross and clumpy and I had to repaint these, so I mean, maybe if that was the effect I was going for, but nah. All of my mushrooms will have some cute little dots on them, and this is what I like to use for that, the dimensional like fabric paint. I like the dots that it makes. For one, I mean, it just comes out of the applicator in perfect little dots, which is handy. But also it gives some texture because all those little dots are raised and shiny, and so they really show up nicely when the light hits them. This is the mushroom I did with the pink pigment powder. I'm not going to be painting it with anything else, so just going right ahead and adding the dots. There are so many ways to color this kind of clay though, and to start with, we're just going to use good old acrylic paint. Next up, I'm going to be doing Pearl-Ex powder, and I'm just dry brushing it on, kind of pushing it down into the texture of the clay a little bit. I'm going to use purple and teal on this one, and it's going to give me a very soft pastel muted effect. This is probably one of my favorite ways to color this clay. Watercolor plays really nicely with this clay, and I don't know, I love the way watercolor bleeds together when you use two different colors. You know, that gradient you get on the edges where they come together? I just love that, which you'll see a little bit of that just here in a second. When I add these little green dots, you'll see how they kind of just bleed out into that blue, and I love that effect. Soft pastels are also a lot of fun. We're going to use these really similarly to how we did in the skull video. I'm just taking them on a piece of rough sandpaper, so I have a little bit of powder from the chalk pastel, and then I'm going to take a wet paintbrush, and you can apply this in any kind of pattern you want. Right here I'm going to do some pink streaks all the way around the edges, and then inside of that I'm going to do some blue streaks, but this is pastels, so the streaks aren't going to stay streaks. I'm going to do just like I would on paper, and after I get these on there, I'm going to take this big fluffy brush right here, and I'm just going to blend those pastels in together. Using that same Pearl-Ex powder from earlier, I decided I would show you, you can also use it with a wet brush, which will give you a heavier pigmented look. So really that's all I'm doing. There's water on my brush and I'm applying it with water. And you can even double up your methods. Like here we've got the acrylic painted mushroom and I'm going over it with the teal Pearl-Ex and water. And honestly, this one turned out to be my favorite. I don't know, it just looks so magical when it's done. Moving on to the rocks, these are just some floral foam blocks I bought at Dollar Tree. And then I'm going to take my trusty murder scissors and just kind of chop at it. The main thing is I don't want a big bunch of flat surface or right angles on this, because rocks in nature, they don't have a lot of that going on, you know. And then any kind of thick paint that's going to dry clear is going to work for this. Like you could even use like kindergarten paste, you know, that stuff you used to eat? Perfect. That'll work great. Here I'm using some Craft Bond, which was kind of old and getting thick, so that actually worked out really great for me. You're just going to apply a really generous layer on all the surfaces you want to add the mossy effect to. Now I'm going to take this canister I have of green flocking. You can find this in most craft stores and hobby stores in the model making section. It's like, sometimes it's like called terrain powder or something like that. I call it green flocking. I'm just gonna sprinkle it on here and then kind of push it down into the glue. Alternatively, you can take your glue covered piece and stick it in a baggie like this with the flocking and kind of shake it around, kind of like you're making fried food. But you still want to make sure you want to push the flocking into the glue really well. Now I know you can still see a lot of white on these, and like I said, this glue is going to dry clear and that won't be noticeable once the glue is dry. All you'll see is a little bit of the other green from the floral blocks. But as always, I'm in a rush and I'm not going to wait for the glue to dry before I start gluing on the other moss. So this is just some reindeer moss and some Spanish moss that I've bought, I don't know, various craft stores. And you just want to put it on there until you like the way it looks. I wanted this rock to have a kind of wild look to it with different kinds of moss on it. So really, yeah, it's a matter of taste. Put it on there till you like how it looks. And remember how we left a little bit of wire hanging out the other end of the mushroom? That's so we can just pop it right there into the floral foam and have wonderful magical mushroom time. Ta-da! So I hope you guys enjoyed this short and simple tutorial. Of course you could use more natural colors when you do your mushrooms, and you don't have to do them exactly like I did. You can take the time to actually do some more intricate sculpting if you want the, I don't know if I'm saying the right word, the gills on the bottom of some mushrooms. I really don't think that's the right word, but you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I had told you guys on a previous video like last year or something that I would show you guys how I make mushrooms, and there are a couple of different ways I make mushrooms. This is only one of the ways, but these are going to go in that big upcoming project I keep talking about. So these were specifically made with that in mind. So they're a bit on the fantasy side, you know, they really aren't modeled after any real mushrooms, especially the color palette. I mean, come on. Those things don't look realistic at all. But I think they're going to really look great for my whole vision. You guys know how it is. Artist life. We got a vision. Dang it. Anyways, and the little moss covered rocks, that was kind of just an extra because really you can buy those things already made at the Dollar Tree even. Like, those things are everywhere. But if you want a specific look, if you want it to have a little wilder look like I do, or again, these are going to be part of that upcoming project, so I'm going to need them to wind up in a very specific shape. So I need to make my own so that I can kind of puzzle them together to get the look I'm going for. So that's what this is good for. Also, you know, just like this ending shot here that I'm about to show you, it's cute. You can just make these little like mushroom covered mossy rocks to just sit around your house for the heck of it, or put them in a terrarium, whatever. They're just kind of cute. They add that little magical plants effect, you know? Anyway, I think I'm rambling. Am I rambling? I'm usually rambling. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be shorter and sweeter now that I'm doing closers instead of openers, but I don't know if I'm so good at shorter and sweeter. I like to talk. And gosh, is anybody else like, oh, this stupid pandemic, I'm just so like miserably lonely to chatter nonsensically and endlessly at other humans. It's rough, y'all. It's rough. Hang in there. Alright, so the next one is the big one. I'm going to be putting together this thing that I just keep going on about, that the skull and the crystals. I'm going to put them up there. That's why I'm pointing up in the air, but it's probably obvious in the actual video. Anyway, that all these little projects, they're going to come together into this one big project of elegant, spooky time for your house. And that was the spookiest way I could have said that. Anyway, see you guys next weekend. While you're here, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and be sure you follow this project all the way through to its end, which will be next week. Didn't these turn out so cute? Like, I think I want to make a bunch of these and just set them all around my room. Oh, hello, Adrian, you good boy. I think he likes them too. Be sure you check below for my other social media.